Hi. So, in reading over the family's case summary for the first segment of this, in how I would do the introduction with the family and the joining session, I think I would take a step from Weber and McKeevy and McDaniel's, and even before the initial meeting, I would want to reach out to the family and call them, finalizing dates and times of the initial meeting. If they need to show up early to fill out some paperwork, I want to go over that with them and who would be coming to that first meeting. I would also want to use this call to get a general understanding of what the problem is so that even before this first meeting, I can start to form an initial hypothesis of how the family dynamic affects the problem. And I will then use the first meeting to see if that is an accurate hypothesis or if that hypothesis needs to be changed at all. In the first meeting, I think that many of the articles that we have read and videos we have watched have made good points about that we need to introduce ourselves to each family member individually and try to engage each family member individually. I think this really helps with the joining process as a beginning step to eventually not have the therapist be seen as an outsider or somebody giving advice, but really eventually see the therapist as a part of the family helping in the change process. Um, and that'll go to the long term. That'll help with like getting into those long term effects of really being able to incorporate changes more beneficially to the family. I think another good point is to tell the family that they can choose their own seating, as many of the articles and videos pointed out. That this will really help show us, as the worker, what the subsystems, boundaries, and relationships within the family are. This is a good way to gather some insight. Next, I would go around to each individual, starting with the parents as the authority figures, and ask them what their understanding is of why they're in this meeting and what they hope to get out of it. I would then pose this question to all the children as well. For the second segment, as far as how to deal with the parents if they get into having an active instance of bickering with each other. I think in reading the family's case example, I would use what the Nicholas text was telling us about how it would seem more of like a husband feeling his wife nags too much, so he pulls away, and the wife feeling that her husband pulling away makes her nag, when they really are having a circular effect on one another, in which when the wife nags more, the husband pulls away more, and vice versa. Really, what is happening is neither party is listening or hearing the other. I think something that would help to work through the issue would be to have the children leave the room so that we can do an enactment between mother and father, and have both children be out of the room, and we can just work on that parental relationship. Especially since both of the children at different points have stated that, they see their parents having these arguments and thinking that like that could probably be really affecting a lot of what's going on with their teenage daughter. However, since this is the initial interview or just the beginning stages of, the joining process with the family, it might not be the right time to have the kids leave the room, but that is something that I would want to explore later on in the process with the family. So in this case, when they do start to bicker, I think that it would be helpful to enforce a rule of one person talks at a time while the other listens and then responds. I would then like to ask the parents each what they think the kids are hearing and experiencing from their parents' relationship when they start bickering, and then check in with the kids about if this is, if this is right or wrong, what they're hearing from what they're experiencing, if what the parents are hearing and experiencing, what they think their kids are hearing and experiencing is correct or incorrect, so that they all know how they're all processing that information individually and get a better understanding of how each family member processes, hears, and understands these moments that are happening within the family. From reading the summary, I would anticipate some stressors due to in the family might be due to transitions that they're working through, specifically of how they have, dealt with the father being on disability, how this has affected responsibilities among the adults of who is caring for the children, household responsibilities, and what struggles this is putting on everyone, and how they feel as though they are working through that, because it sounds as though they are kind of in that transitional time. I think that this would really be able to help the family long term with learning how to communicate more effectively. In the ending portion of the interview, I think it would be good to summarize the points that we've gone over during that initial interview, what we've identified the problem as, what we have identified that the family would like to work on, and the hopes that they have for the future. I also think it would be good to give encouragement to the family and acknowledge that they've started doing some hard work to really make improvements in their family, and that this is something to be proud of. I think the homework can be given out, although I'm not really sure what that would be necessarily at this point in time, not having worked with them. I would also want to check in with them to hear their feedback and see if they feel like they got anything out of this session, if they want to continue the work in the future. And lastly, I would want to check in with them about scheduling the next appointment to set up a commitment with them more long term, and see if they need any other referrals. So, thank you.